Focus on fifth dimension, living from the heart, leading from the heart. Letting heart energy, which the faith that divine love is the power, be the predominant factor in our conscious choices. And we can only do that if we are making conscious choices. Because otherwise we go unconscious and the predominant vibration around us takes over. That might be positive and it might be negative. If we choose positively, consciously, to be a high vibration as often as possible, we become a powerful force for good in every environment we're in. The book I'm using as our reference book this month is Power versus Force. This is written by David R. Hawkins. He's both an MD and a Ph.D. He's a psychologist as well as an MD. The research of this book, it's a fabulous book. How many of you have read it or even attempted to read it? Yes. It's a very intense book. I mean, it's so filled with incredible revolutionary thinking, innovative perspectives and insights, but they're all based on this scientific research. I personally love the combination of those because I think sometimes our human intellect needs a little bit of help to get quiet and let the heart take over. And so the science helps us still that monkey mind that's going, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? Yeah, but this, yeah, but that. And we have to calm it down a little bit so we can open our heart and let the heart lead. And trust that love isn't this little fluffy thing. And I'm not talking about the way humans love one another, which is beautiful sometimes and other times not so beautiful, right? So I'm talking about a different kind of love, a very pure love, the love that is life force itself, that is creation energy. Creation energy, the creation that created this beautiful plant and produces these beautiful blooms, which are tiny, and I'm not sure what they are, miniature oranges?
They're calamandins.
Oh, they're lovely. I love it. This is in celebrating our citrus tribe. We just supported solar gardening and their crew to do. So there is this force, and I invite you at this exact moment as I say this, still your intellect and open your heart. And don't try to think about this and analyze it. Feel it. See if you can feel it. And see if you have agreement with it by feeling it, by sensing it. There is a force in the world. It's a force that does this. Now we can nurture that, but we cannot, as humans, create the seed from which it forms. And we, as humans, do not create the potential that is in that seed. The potential to be that is beyond our ability. The potential to nurture it, so that the life of it expands and serves for good in the world, yes, we can influence that powerfully. But we do not invent the very seeds, the very originating seed of life on this planet. The planet itself. Each living creature. That power is love. That is love that never stops flowing, moving, forming, expanding. And when you feel into that and you have a sense of that, does it ring true for you? Can you get a sense of that is a force for good that cannot be stopped? Nothing stops it. Try getting weeds to stop growing. They won't. Right? Not forever. You walk up to some big space of cement, teeny little spot once in the very middle of a big parking lot, a little bitty crack, with a tiny little, minuscule amount of soil. And there's a little weed, and it'll even bloom if it can. That's powerful. The will to continue to express life, that's divine love. the impetus, the natural, instinctual inevitability of life expanding. That is divine love. That is the force, the power that is divine love. And I like to think of it as power, because this book does a beautiful job of helping us distinguish between power versus force. And so today in part one, we're going to have 4 parts of this. In part one, we're talking about conscious choice versus forcefulness. So David Hawkins is brilliant for trying to understand how to measure consciousness. And if you want to Google his map of consciousness, it's brilliant. It measures, it has the frequencies of all these different emotional states and how they play out into behaviors. Map of consciousness. He measures it by using a kinesthetic process that some people call muscle testing, and he has groups of people do it to ensure that it's very consistent, so that there's no just one person this way and one person that way. Gets it very consistent. And he's measured different frequencies of master teachers through history, mystical teachers. So he measures, we're going to start with this measurement. The measurement of the energy level 200. And if you Google his map of consciousness, you'll see that 200 is kind of in the center, very close to the center. 200 is the level he calls courage. Now think about courage. Courage comes from the Latin word cur, which is the heart. French word also comes from that. So courage is the level of our heart being open, not vulnerable, open, like grounded and open. Heart energy. The power of heart energy, like a chakra, not just the human heart itself, which is a powerful force in itself. It's measured too, but this is a spiritual component. At that level, when you walk in a room, you raise the vibration. Your frequency of 200 or higher is enough to change the frequency of people around you, to influence them. Now, I use the word change carefully because we don't want to force change. We want to invite change. We want to influence positive improvement. We cannot help but be an influence. That's why we always focus on how are we influencing our children. Not just our own children, but the children in our environment. We are a radiating center of energy. We are always influencing everything in our energy field. How large is your energy field? Depends on your consciousness. It might be a few feet, it might be 30 feet. And it will fluctuate during the day and during your lifetime. The more you learn to be very grounded and open at the same time, which we will do in our process today, our meditation process, we'll practice that together, the further your energy will emanate. Make sure that's a positive emanation, right? Not in a negative way. Courage and above, we influence people to the positive. Below that, we are now subject to the darker, more negative vibration of others. Have you ever had an experience where you're around a group of people and they're kind of being negative, maybe they're gossiping, maybe they're just complaining, maybe they're not doing anything particularly mean, with a conscious intention to be mean, but they are participating in negative vibration. Well, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to not want to be there because it feels so bad, and you'll either be quiet and endure it, or you'll leave, find a reason to leave, say goodbye earlier than you might have planned. Or if you stay and your energy isn't high enough, you find yourself kind of getting gossipy, or at least critical, right? And you later that day or the next day you think, wait, what happened? That's not who I am. Why did I do that? Well, this is why. We are living and swimming, in an energy all the time. Let's make sure we learn to be sovereign of our energy so that it becomes a positive influence, because otherwise we're doing two things. We're participating in the negative without meaning to, and we're also not being who we are, which is that feeling of selling your soul. It's not good for us. It's not good for our bodies. It's not good for our life. It doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve the world at large. Yeah. So here's what he says about the level of courage. At the 200 level, power really first appears. When we test subjects at all the energy levels below 200, we find, as can be readily verified, that they all go weak. So that means you're now under the influence of others, instead of having your own influence, being sovereign of your energy, and also being a strong influence for good. Everyone goes strong in response to the life-supportive fields above 200. This is the critical level that distinguishes the positive and negative influences of life. At the level of courage, an attainment of true power occurs. Therefore, it is also the level of empowerment. This is the zone of exploration, accomplishment, fortitude, and determination. At the lower levels, the world is seen as hopeless, sad, frightening, or frustrating. But at the level of courage, life is seen to be exciting, challenging, and stimulating. Courage implies the willingness to try new things and deal with the vicissitudes of life. At this level of empowerment, one is able to cope with and effectively handle the opportunities of life. At 200, for instance, there is the energy to learn new job skills. Growth and education become attainable goals. There is the capacity to face fears or character defects and to grow despite them. Anxiety also does not cripple endeavor, as it would at the lower levels of evolution. Obstacles that defeat people whose consciousness is below 200 act as stimulants to those who have evolved into the first level of true power. People at this level put back into the world as much energy as they take. At lower levels, populations, as well as individuals, drain energy from society without reciprocating. Because accomplishments result in positive feedback, self-reward and esteem become progressively self-reinforcing. This is where productivity begins. The collective level of consciousness of mankind remained at 190 for many centuries, and curiously only jumped to its current level of 204 within the last decade. Now this book has been out for several years, so it's not today's time, but around in the late 90s is when he measured this. So think about that. What does that mean, that humanity was collectively, not every person, but collectively measuring at 190 until recent years, until the last 20 or 30 years?
The Depression.
And all the prejudice, all the cruelty, all the negative thinking, all the fear, all of the inability to make discoveries to cure disease and the reason for the disease itself, the cause, the mental causation that leads to a society having, think about a society that stays impoverished. Well, they're not going to have good health. Think about how we keep certain society. We have institutions in place that are designed to keep certain groups of people impoverished in some way, uneducated, not enough. If you're uneducated, it's going to be a struggle to have a good income in your life. It's also going to be a struggle to have ability to take good care of yourself and understand how to do that. think of how these things that have been in place for a long time, where people literally set up a system to profit off of other people's suffering. Well, slavery is like a classic example of that. Yeah. We don't see one another as equals. And I like to think of it this way. If you use the word honor, I like it because it takes away any sort of us versus them. And it also helps us to realize that anyone behaving this way is a person who hasn't cultivated an awareness of the joy of living with reciprocal honor. Think how good it feels when we do that. You can think of it as reciprocal love, reciprocal kindness, reciprocal compassion. But when your intention in everything you do is that it's positive for everyone involved, it will be positive. Now, you can't always know that from your human intellect. You say, okay, I want this to be, like, I have to think of this way. When we're working on things and there's a decision I need to make for the whole of us, I want it to serve the whole of us. I want it to serve beyond even us, right? Well, I can't sit down for every decision and call everybody and, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I do get your input, and I always welcome your input. So what do? I have to turn it over to a greater wisdom and intelligence than my human brain itself. So if you make that your intention, you don't even have to verbalize it. You just make it your intention. That for every decision, for everything you choose, a conscious choice would be one that always is good for the greater whole. If it's good for the greater whole, it cannot not be good for you because you're part of the greater whole. So we don't have to see, do you see how that sense of competitiveness is like so embedded in our thinking process? Well, I can't do it if it's not good for me, or do I have to give up something that's good for me for the greater whole? We have that competitiveness and sacrifice so embedded in our thinking process, in our, in the world at large. We don't. It's an illusion. It's not true. It is not true. There are infinite possibilities. We've always lived in that world. Jesus taught it all those years ago, and mystics before him taught it. We are not limited to it has to be this way or that way. We can look at beyond it, step back, let our human brain wait for higher instruction, and be guided to something that is a win-win. We used to say win-win, now it's win-win-win. It's you, me, and everybody. It's not just you and me, it's you and me and the greater good, the world at large. Yeah. And you've seen, think of all the changes we've seen in the last 20 years or 30 years. We are moving in that direction, aren't we? There's still a lot of negativity, I know. But we are definitely moving in that direction. There's always been the brave, courageous souls who said, this is not good enough. And what's very important is to participate in the solution, not just stay critical of the problem. Consciousness versus force. If you stay in a state of mind where you're focusing on how bad the problem is and how awful the people are who are doing the thing that's part of the problem, you are pouring all your creative force into the problem, not the solution. That is one of the biggest mistakes of spiritual people. They forget that every word and every thought is a prayer. It's not just when you state it as a prayer. Every moment of your being is literally a prayer. You are aligning with God force to create something wonderful, or you are not aligning with God force, and you're using all your energy field to go in a direction of something not so wonderful. I want to read to you what David Hawkins says about that. Right here. Aha. No, I'm sorry, I forgot page. Okay. This is why I write it down. Okay. This one. Okay. He calls this the progression of consciousness. He explains it this way. Many people in the mid-500s, once you get up to that level, and through the rest of the month we're going to go through a couple of other levels. Each week I'll choose one level to talk about. So when people begin to enter the mid-500s, they begin to have spiritual experiences of profound import, and they become immersed in spiritual pursuit. Some astonish their friends and families with sudden breakthroughs into new subjective contexts of reality. Consciousness at this level can be described as visionary and may focus on uplifting society as a whole. From this level, a few make the great leap to the region that calibrates at 600. At this point, an individual's life may become legendary. The signature of 600s is compassion, which pervades all motivation and activity. Although the levels we have described span a great variation, it is not common for individuals to move from one level to another during one lifetime. This really stunned me when I read this. Think about this. The energy field that is calibrated for an individual at birth only increases on the average by about 5 points in their entire life. That's average. That doesn't mean it can't happen differently for each of us. Isn't that something? That an individual's level of consciousness is already in effect at birth is a sobering fact with profound implications. And consciousness itself, in its expression as human civilization, evolves slowly indeed through numerous generations. The majority of people utilize their life experiences to elaborate and express the variations of their native energy field, the one they were born with. It is the rare individual who manages to move beyond it, although many people make considerable internal improvements. The reason for this is more easily understandable when we see that what defines one's level is motivation. Motivation proceeds from meaning, and meaning in turn is an expression of context. Thus, achievement is bounded by context, which then correspondingly aligned with motivation determines the individual's relative power. He goes on to talk about how a few people's cumulative life choices can result in a net lowering of their level of consciousness. But at the same time, the influence of a very few individuals of advanced consciousness will counterbalance the whole population. So think about that for just a minute. He goes on to say, without the exercise of choice, no progression will occur. So how do we progress? By conscious choice. How do we influence the world? As Gandhi said, we be the change. We be it. We be the change. We don't just be it by our activities, because if our activities are not forming from high vibration, they will not have powerful impact. It's like the Band-Aid. Instead of healing the wound, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. And that's nice to have the Band-Aid, the bandage, but we really want to heal the wound. How do we heal the wounds of society? Well, think about a wound in society right now that you would like to be a part of a solution. You become one with the solution. You let the wound that that is painful for you to observe or hear about, let that awaken your desire to be part of the solution. You don't pretend it's not there, but you don't believe that it is the last word on that it is how things must be. You don't cave into believing that nothing can be done and that one person can't make a difference. One person's consciousness can make a huge difference. We gather in groups like this because our collective consciousness, then we all help buoy each other's vibration. And then we go out in the week and we have a powerful impact. And then we come back to get charged up again if we need help being charged up. And I encourage you to do that every morning before you go out in the world, whether the out is just, electronically out, right? Before you begin communicating with others and receiving their vibration, get yours really strong and high. And I also suggest doing it before you go to sleep at night. Not because something's going to attack you during your sleep, but because when you go to sleep, you want to set an intention to surrender. You want to leave behind any residue of that day. I teach a process of being really free emotionally. I read a book years ago, Emotional Resilience, and ever since then, I do that daily. Don't bring negative emotion from one day to the next. At least raise it up another vibration. If you can't eliminate it, you can raise it. You can raise it. Won't be like peeling the onion of the layers of the onion. Peel off a layer before you go to sleep at night. So that when you awaken, you're a higher vibration than when you had that problem. Because I promise you what vibration you go to sleep with, you awaken with, unless you set an intention to raise it. You will come right back into that same emotional state. And we have to choose to be the ones. Let's go back to the famous, wonderful, famous talk by Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Aren't we glad he had a dream? Aren't we glad he had a dream? Mm-hmm. And doesn't just impact the people that he was speaking about wanting to help. Because he wanted to help all people. All people. Be equal and understand they were equal and treat one another as equal. As Jesus said, love one another. There are no exceptions. Love one another. So imagine a world where more than half of the human population, 51%, 50.00001%, make conscious choices to treat one another with honor. Make conscious choices to manage their energy field, to contribute positively to the progression of life on planet Earth. Cultivate practices to be in a state of joy and creativity, to not be the least bit bashful about owning their divine brilliance, their unique essence of divinity, expressing however it is meant to express the wonderful bagels we're going to enjoy today. Right? The peacock feathers last week. The citrus. The music. The joy in each one's heart. Take a moment to feel the joy in your heart. That's your unique signature of joy. Your unique resonance of joy. It's in a range, but you have a unique resonance. Now turn to somebody near you. You don't have to stare at them. And feel their resonance of joy. Feel their resonance of joy. Doesn't that feel good? You see how we can learn to see the good in one another, the love, the joy. There's one more piece that I just got a nudge to share, so let me share. This is about the supporting the solution. Let me say this real quick. See how we're doing on that time. Okay. This is pretty powerful. Beyond the surface world of commerce, society provides numerous other marketplaces where fulfillment of human needs is sought, bartered, stolen, coerced, and denied. It is a simple fact of life that satisfaction of needs brings contentment. Simple fact of life. Satisfaction of needs, of human needs, brings contentment. Frustration breeds violence, crime, and emotional turmoil. If the mission of government, regulatory institutions, were realigned to support the fulfillment of human needs, rather than mounting moralistic black and white campaigns to stamp out social problems, these institutions could become powerful forces for human betterment. Now, how does that feel to you? Government being for good instead of against something that's bad. It's kind of, you kind of have to think about it for a minute, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And that's why I say it's so careful that we don't put our energy into the ending of something bad, labeling it bad and wrong, something we don't want more of. We want to be aware of it, and then immediately, as Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Now, focus on what you want. Yep, we don't want this thing here. Now let's look over here and say, here's what I want. I'm going to help create this. If by nothing more than my focus and my intention and my prayer, which is powerful. Start there. And then you'll be led to do maybe something else. Perceptual fields are limited by the attractor pattern with which they are associated. This means that the capacity to recognize significant factors in a given situation is limited by the context that arises from the level of consciousness of the observer. The motive of the viewer automatically determines what is seen. So think about that. If your motive is to create a positive solution, you will see it differently. If your motive is you're fearful and you're defensive of something bad you're observing, what's your energy going to be doing? Creating a boundary, right? The problem with creating that energy boundary outside of you to keep something away is, you know what else you're keeping out is life force. You're constricting your own energy field. Because if you're aligning with life force, God force, you're in a higher vibration, and the only things that your attractor pattern, as he calls it, is an energy vortex that's coming to you all the time, is going to match your frequency. So how do you be safe in the world? Have a high vibration. How do you contribute positively in the world? Have a high vibration, a high consciousness. As pure as you can in alignment with God. Be as pure as you can in alignment with life force, God force, source energy. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Does that seem confusing? One basic principle has the power to resolve the problems of the social marketplace. One principle. Support the solution instead of attacking the supposed causes. Attack is in itself inherently a very weak attractor pattern, level 150. Remember, we want to be 200 or above. Leading through fear to intimidation, coercion, and eventually moral corruption. Force is the universal substitute for truth. Think about that. If you don't understand the truth of where power really comes from, and you're fearful, that's when a person turns to force. And that force might be physical attack. That force might be verbal attack. That force might be an angry, silent withhold, which is also very powerful. That's actually aggression. There's nothing, see, it's not the words and the behaviors, energy it carries. So you can sit here and be just so angry and think well, at least you're being spiritual because you're not saying this thing you think. No, you're emanating it. Right? And so none of us are horrible and bad when we feel bad, but we want to be responsible enough to go within and process it, not throw it out in the world for more chaos. And the thing is, it's going to come right back. Whatever, think about that beautiful thing you as you give something out, it comes back. As you give something out, it comes back. So we want to clean it up before we get it out as best we can. Just keep doing that, keep doing that, keep doing that. Raise up, raise up, raise up, raise up, raise up. Be the change you wish to see. Be the love you wish to experience. Be the joy you wish to experience. Perceive the beauty you wish to be a part of. Perceive the creative brilliance in others, because then they too will perceive it in you. I don't know if you saw the Facebook post. I put a quote by Marianne Williamson, one of my favorite quotes out of A Return to Love. And I don't have it memorized, but she says that if you want to experience love in the world, you have to be love. If you want to experience softness in the world, you have to first soften yourself. Think about that. If you want to experience the beauty and the joy and the sense of honor from others, you must bring it to them also and be the one to do it first. That's how we be the change. We are the ones we've been waiting for. That was that song we listened to. I love that song, Existence, that Casey selected for us, that very first song this year. We're the ones we've been waiting for. We always have been. We used to not think so, but now we know. We, each of us, and collectively, we're the ones we've been waiting for, and those like us. The ones who have the courage to say, we're going to lead with our heart. We're going to trust that the power of heart energy is the true power. It is of God, and we are of God. We are divine expressions of the Most High. What an amazing honor that we get to be that in this dimension, with all the beauty that is possible for us in this dimension. And I'm glad we're here to celebrate it today. Let's have our meditation now. So I'll take a deep breath, please. Mix it with sound. One more deep breath. Exhale with sound. And a very slow, soft breath. Gently exhale. And all the energy that is unlike peacefulness, joy, and love, just let it dissipate out your fingers, out your toes, through the crown of your head. I'm going to walk you through a process that helps us be both grounded and open to life force. And then we're going to meditate on a phrase. So I want you to imagine a beautiful ball of light at the crown of your head, your crown chakra. And I want you to let that beautiful light just float down through your body in a clockwise motion, into the crown, into the center of your head, where the pineal gland is located. That's your third eye. through your forehead, your vision. And now that beautiful ball of light goes down into your throat. Again, it's circling clockwise, your chakra. Now it goes lower into your heart chakra. Circling, soothing, opening, and into your solar plexus. Circling clockwise, gently, calming, soothing. And into the sacral area. That's where all of our creative force comes from. Circling, opening, grounding. Into the root chakra, your hips, down through the legs, to the feet. Circling, moving clockwise into the earth. And just let that beautiful ball of light go down into the earth. Let's take a breath, please. And now we're going to pull this beautiful pure energy back up, this purified light. This time we're going to bring it up through the spine, up through the feet and the legs, into the back of the spine, your tailbone area. That's your root chakra. Now to the lower back area, sacral chakra, up into your middle back, solar, behind your heart, upper back. Now to the back of the neck, through the top of the spine into the center of your head. Now let it come on back through your crown and let that beautiful ball of light expand into a cocoon around you. Just let the energy flow like a fountain. You are now grounded and you are now open. Open your heart. Open that beautiful heart chakra. Open all your chakras. As much as you feel comfortable doing right now. Don't push, just easily open your energy now. You're not opening to anyone else, you're opening to God force, to your very source, the life force. The power that creates worlds, pure, divine love. And the statement I want you to meditate on for just the next a minute or so, is this statement. I now choose the energy of pure, divine love. This is the truth of who I am. This is the true power in the world. I'm inviting you to align with this energy. I now choose the energy of pure, divine love. As you go forward this week, and something crosses your path, a person, a thought, an experience that is unlike this pure alignment with love, choose the energy of love before you respond. Let that lead. You may not respond at all, at least not with a word or an action, but your energy will influence the situation, the person, the experience, and of course you. I now choose the energy of pure, divine love. It's the truth of who you are. We have a piece of music. This is written by Connie. And he will be before you. When you're ready, bring your voices back into the room or just stay quietly and enjoy the music. Isn't that lovely?
I think we should be calm.
Thank you so much. All right. I know, we were all nervous. That was perfect. That was